They thought it was just another anomaly. Satellites detected irregular geothermal activity deep in the Dhaulagiri range of the Himalayas. The kind that made government scientists curious and drew thrill-seeking mountaineers like moths to flame. 6 people answered the call. 3 researchers, 2 climbers, and a medic. They weren't searching for glory, just data. But in the end, they wouldn't return with either. The ascent took 4 days through biting winds and ice-clad cliffs. On the 5th, they found something no satellite could see. A narrow fissure in the cliffside, previously hidden behind a collapsed ledge. The passage led to a chamber carved into the mountain itself, unnaturally dry and eerily preserved. There, in the stillness of centuries, sat a mummified monk, legs crossed, eyes long since turned to dust. His right hand clutched a brittle parchment scroll bound with faded red thread. It was Aaron, the youngest climber, who reached out and untied the thread. The scroll unfurled easily, like it had been waiting. They couldn't read the script. It wasn't Sanskrit, nor any known dialect. It writhed unnaturally across the parchment, the letters twitching when viewed too long. The ink shimmered faintly, like it was still wet. Professor Hale insisted they document it, photograph it. Aaron stuffed it into a dry bag instead. That was the last decision he made that made any sense. That night, strange sounds echoed through the camp. Not wind, not animals. Chanting, low, rhythmic, and impossibly distant, as if coming from beneath their feet. They laughed it off. High-altitude hallucinations, they told themselves. On the 3rd night, Lauren, the medic, vanished. Her sleeping bag was still zipped, her boots untouched. Her breath had frosted the inside of the tent. She had simply gone. No footprints, no struggle, just a faint scent of burning incense in the air and a dark smear across the inside of the tent wall, like ash or soot. They searched. They screamed her name. The mountain swallowed every sound. On the 4th night, Aaron began talking in his sleep, not muttering, but speaking fluently in that same curling language from the scroll. His voice was wrong, too deep, too old. When they tried to wake him, he opened his eyes, but didn't stop. His irises were gone, only swirling clouds of gray. It took both climbers to restrain him, while Hale burned sage and recited prayers from memory. By morning, Aaron was silent. His pupils were milky white, staring at something they couldn't see. He didn't speak again. By the 5th night, he was gone too. Only his clothes remained, arranged neatly, folded with reverence, a single drop of wax pooled atop his jacket. The others began to unravel. Mia, one of the researchers, was next. She started writing symbols on the walls of the tent in her own blood. When confronted, she screamed that the scroll was watching her, that it wanted to go back. She clawed at her skin, whispering that something had already crawled inside her. She ran out into the snow barefoot and vanished into the fog, leaving a trail of smoldering footprints. By the end of the week, only 2 remained: Hale and Grant, the last climber. They tried to descend, but every path blurred together. Landmarks shifted, compass needles spun in place, food spoiled instantly. They were never hungry, though. Something in the mountain fed on them, not their bodies, but their minds, their memories, their names. Grant left the scroll behind that night. Said it didn't matter anymore. Said it was inside them now. That it had never been just parchment. It was a mouth. In the morning, Hale was alone. The tents were torn, but the snow outside lay untouched. Grant was gone. Hale called for him until his voice cracked, scoured the ridgelines until his vision blurred. But it was as though Grant had simply ceased to exist, erased from time rather than lost in terrain. That night, alone, Hale did not dream of the mountains. Instead, the monk from the cave appeared in his vision, perfectly still, suspended in darkness like a forgotten relic. His skin was cracked and gray like old bark, his eyes hollow yet piercing, as though seeing through the fabric of worlds. Slowly, he raised one withered finger to his lips. Silence. After that night, Professor Hale was never seen again. The rescue team arrived 10 days later, responding to a dead satellite beacon. No bodies, no blood, no signs of an avalanche or storm. Just an empty campsite and a single dry bag half buried in the snow, holding a brittle parchment scroll, still tied with faded red thread, pulsing faintly under the surface. They brought it back to the city. They didn't know what they'd done. Down in the valley below Dhaulagiri, the town of Pokhara began to change. Children spoke words their parents had never taught them. Radios picked up transmissions in voices too old to belong to the living. Monks refused to enter temples. Dogs howled for hours, staring at nothing. Birds circled overhead in silence. No one remembered the scroll's arrival, but its story had already begun writing itself again, this time in flesh. And the mountain was no longer watching from afar. It was listening. If this story unsettled you, leave a like and let the shadows know. Subscribe for more tales you shouldn't hear after dark. And if you've seen something you can't explain, tell us in the comments. We're always listening.